2, 1, action.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call to order the June 12th, 2025 business meeting of the Croton Harmon Union Free School District. Please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item 1.3, executive session, recommended action, be it resolved, the Board of Education hereby enters into executive session to discuss the employment of a particular person or persons. So moved.
Second.
On the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion carries. We will be entering executive session. We don't think it'll be too long. We'll be right back.
3, 2, 1, action.
Thank you, everyone, for your patience. Item 1.4, executive session, leave recommended action, be resolved, the Board of Education hereby leaves the executive session.
So
and
moved.
return to the regular meeting.
Second.
On the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion carries. Item 1.5, approval of the agenda, recommended action, be it resolved, the Board of Education hereby approves the agenda as presented.
So moved.
Second. On the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion carries. So moving to reports. So that's one report. I was able to join our seniors today on the red carpet as they prepared to board the buses to go to prom. So the next 2 weeks will be a continuation of the culmination of the education of these amazing individuals. It was really great, all some of the great things that are happening. There is one very sad thing happening today. This is our colleague Josh Gunn's last board meeting as a Board of Education trustee. I wanted to just say, Josh, it's been a complete honor to serve with you as a colleague and call you a friend. I'm very sad you won't be here next year, but we hope that you will continue to offer your input and friendship.
I'll be around.
You will be missed, but I will see the rest of this report to my colleague Neil Haber, who has served the longest with Josh.
Thank you. To start off, as I was thinking about what I might say, it's sort of like, it sounds sort of like a eulogy, and I don't want it to sound like that. So let's not consider it a eulogy. But I've worked with Josh since the time, the day that he joined our board in 2014, I believe it was. And we have been through a whole lot of issues, a whole lot of problems, a whole lot of solutions together. I could list them all, or talk about some of them, but I think we can also talk, and more should talk about, the accomplishments that we've had with Josh's input and the manner in which he has carefully and thoughtfully considered issues that have come before us, and always being concerned and mindful of all students. Students with special needs, students who are English language learners, students who, if you will, march to a different drummer, and wanting to make sure that everybody received the maximum out of their experiences in or through our district that they possibly could. And we've had a lot of accomplishments as well. Some accomplishments are weathering storms, so to speak, like COVID, and some accomplishments are things that are more positive, such as our work over the years to greatly improve instruction in all grades, to improve our facilities, and to make sure that we are in a strong fiscal, financial position, even during times, as you know, in the early years of Josh's service, when we first got, or soon after I'd gotten saddled with a tax levy cap and had to navigate that in times of challenge and inflation. And we've done that very well, and Josh's guidance in that regard to all of us has been invaluable. As well as, since Josh has been, if you will, the tech guru of the board, we've gotten a lot of a lot of information and ways to consider things, and also guidance on doing things like, you know, how to open Google Drive and do stuff like that, because, you know, some are far challenged in that regard, meaning me. So, as Josh, you're no longer going to be with us at this table, I know we will be considering your wisdom and guidance over the years as colleagues and as friends, and you will, I'm sure, be continuing on what is your passion project. Everybody has a passion project. I've said before, mine is to celebrate, put together a celebration of the 100th anniversary of this building, but yours is to bring back the chateau. And so I think in honor and in recognition and in thanks, and in the hope that you will continue to pursue your passion project, the board offers you with our thanks. A lot of tissue paper. A lot of tissue paper.
Oh, thank you. Like I said, I'm not leaving the community, and if the board ever wants my advice on anything, I'm here. I'll listen. I might not be here at a board meeting until 11 p.m. though.
We'll now move into item 2.2, our first hearing of the public. Members of the community can approach the podium to speak for 3 minutes. As always, public discussion on matters relating to staff and students at which their reputation, privacy, or right to due process or those of others could in some way be violated is prohibited.
Ed Riley from Truesdale Drive. At the last meeting, it was interesting to see the celebration of this board about the raising of a gay flag at the municipal building, which several board members were so upset they didn't make it. It felt like they were outside of things. In fact, I view this raising as an abuse of public property. This is a private flag. It is not an American flag. It is not an American flag. And by the way, most of you can't even define what's on that flag. It's changed so many times. It's a flag of an international sexual movement, many of whose tenets are absolutely bizarre, and it does not belong on a public flagpole. So instead of celebrating it, we should be decrying it, because if one group can have a personal private flag, non-American flag, other people should be allowed the same right, and that's what we're going to develop. And it follows, as a corollary to that, is that the group that represents has outsized representation in terms of dealing with this board and the village board. They have more power than any other group in this village. So much so that this board and its executives felt it necessary to meet with them in a private meeting in a controversial site where no cameras were allowed, no recording was allowed, and no notes were allowed. And you agreed to that. That's how much power they have. And that was the culmination of that, and it was done for political purposes. Because one of the sponsors of the event was a candidate for election to this board. So not only was it an outlandish suck up to a particular group with some pretty outrageous ideas, One of the members of that group that entertained you was in fact a candidate for this board. And that in fact was an illegal meeting, no matter what the member who's a legal guy on this board says. That was an illegal meeting. It was a quorum. You agreed to untenable, unreasonable rules. And it is a blot on this board. I'm going to go into the flag history of that flag. We call that flagpole, which has not had a flag on it. It doesn't have a flag on it for 11 months of the year. We call it the gay flagpole now at the municipal building. It has not had a flag on it for 12 months and didn't have 11 months before that. It's just reserved for Pride Month. Just to throw you off a little bit, put a flag up there about 3 days prior to Pride Month to say that, oh, there's another flag up there. I'm going to deal with the flag history of Croton. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is James Carter, Mount Henry Bird. I respectfully request the board to postpone any vote to extend the superintendent's contract at this time. Decisions of this magnitude should not be rushed without full transparency and community engagement. Before moving forward, I believe it's critical that the public is provided with clear performance metrics, evaluation criteria, and a full understanding of the rationale behind the proposed extension. This will allow for informed dialogue and most importantly, help build help build trust in the community in the process. Thank you for your time and consideration. Excelsior.
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Nicole Curran, also Mount Airy. I'm speaking tonight as a concerned parent and educator of 20 years. I ask you postpone the renewal of Stephen Walker's contract until the community has been made fully aware and has been given time to weigh in. For those unaware, there is no strong continuous literacy curriculum across elementary grades. What's taught in one year does not build upon the next, and even within the same grade, the instructional experience is inconsistent between classrooms. Despite the new curriculum in some areas, grades 3 and 4 still lack a dedicated reading and writing program, leaving critical years dependent on supplemental materials. This inconsistency is compounded with a troubling lack of communication to parents. Many parents simply do not know what their children are learning because there is no clear system in place to keep families informed about the curriculum or what is happening in the classroom. Parents are also not informed about assessments or student progress outside of conferences and report cards. Furthermore, failed initiatives like Tiger Day, while well-intentioned, disrupt instructional time and are particularly difficult for students with special needs. The kinds of projects celebrated during these days on social media have been done successfully in the past without dismantling the learning schedule. We must also speak to the lack of academic rigor, accountability, and measurement of success in programs like passion projects. They are publicly praised, again on social media, yet many demonstrate very little critical thinking, innovation, or real educational value. They consume time throughout the year, but offer no clear way to assess learning or growth. Our children's education should not be driven by what looks great on a social media post or loosely defined activities. It must be grounded in high standards, structure, and equitable learning experiences. Our kids deserve better. Thank you for your time.
Can everyone hear me? Yep. Hi, I'm Erica Loudon from Penfield Avenue. I'm here tonight to ask the board to not approve a new contract with Superintendent Stephen Walker. And I'd like to just review some reasons why. In October 2021, Mr. Walker received a contract that went through July 30th, 2025 for $240,000. In July 2023, it was extended through June 2028 with no pay increase. In October 2023, the district engaged with a professional career coach for him at a cost of approximately $15,000 a year. In July 2024, Superintendent Walker was given a raise, so his salary moved up to $246,000 a year with no contract extension. And now tonight's contract extends it through June 2030 and increases his pay to $282,000 a year. It seems to be that he is still working with his career coach for $15,000 a year. Yes, it's true, Superintendent Walker is at the low end of the pay scale for a superintendent in Westchester, but let's remember, Croton Harmon is a small school district with 1 elementary school, 1 middle school, and 1 high school, unlike other districts that have 5 elementary schools. It is unclear to many of us that Superintendent Walker is hitting any benchmarks. Our test scores are down. Superintendent Walker has brought in what some people consider to be innovation, but many others of us consider this to be experimental new curriculum like Tiger Day. And from our estimation, the capital project is running far behind and far over budget. But we don't even know if Superintendent Walker is overseeing it. We don't know who is overseeing it. The business office? I don't know. So again, we're not really sure what Superintendent Walker is doing. And again, we really want to understand why his contract is being extended, and we want to have community input, and we want to have better conversation around this. Thank you for your time.
Good evening, board. It's been a long time I didn't come to stand up at a board meeting. My name is Anne-Marie Kane. I live on Mount Airy Road in Croton. In all the years that I've had a child in the high school, and I actually counted, this has been the 12th year, I've always seen consistent grading policies across teachers and disciplines. Teachers gave on average the same weight to the different categories they graded, that is homework, tests, quizzes, problem sets, projects, and so on. And do I need to move this maybe? And every teacher has used the 4-quarter method, the 4 quarters method, that make the final grade in class. So you average with 4 quarters, sometimes you have the final, etc. It makes the final grade. This year, something different. There's this one teacher at the high school who's not following the quarter method, and instead uses his own method, a rolling grade book. Okay, you may say, if I average the parts or average the total of the parts, it might not make such a big difference. But my first remark is, why is he not using the same method as the other teachers? Isn't there no standard for this? Now the real problem becomes apparent during the school year after a couple of weeks of education. Because the teacher never gives any tests or quizzes or problem sets. So if he were to use a regular 4-quarter system, he had nothing to put in his grade book. That would be a problem. So using a rolling grade book becomes a simple solution. To me, this poses serious ethical and equity questions. I hear equity is a big word in this district. Allowing a group of students to have their phones on a calculator, on the test, where on a no calculate test, because that's also something he did, is not equitable to other students, to the other student cohorts who were not able to use their phone on this test. The lack of tests and quizzes in this class is also not equitable to the students of this class. When they have a bad grade, they are unable to make it up later on, like it is standard policy among high school teachers to give extra tests or quizzes or to have enough so that a student who happens to have a bad grade, yes, we all have bad days, we all have bad grades, well, we have a chance to make it up. Now, students have complained that they weren't able to make it up. And all this, to me, poses other fundamental questions. Why is this teacher allowed to behave this way? Why is the principal allowing it? And if the principal is allowing it, why is the superintendent allowing it? I see 2 answers. Either they believe it is okay, then I might question, why do you think this is okay? Or there is a real lack of supervision of teachers from the administration, a real lack of rigor, and that is coming down from the top.
I'm
And
sorry,
it
I
is
need to cut you
unacceptable.
off. 3-minute mark. It was 3 minutes.
Thank you. Therefore, I question also, like others have said, the renewal, and I respectfully ask you to postpone this decision. Thank you.
Susan Scully, 56 Truesdale Drive. My children have attended Croton Harmon High Schools throughout their educational careers. My daughter is now a rising college sophomore, and my son is a rising senior at Croton Harmon High School. Personally, I'm indifferent regarding the renewal of Mr. Walker's contract. However, before a decision is made, I believe that this board has an obligation to parents, stakeholders, and taxpayers to clearly delineate the criteria and procedures used to evaluate a superintendent's performance and terms of contract renewal. The superintendent is accountable to the board, and the board, as elected officials, are accountable to the school community. This year's contested board election signals community concern about the district's direction. Ongoing concerns include delayed communication, a move away from data-driven practices, and a resulting decline in accountability. As a small but highly skilled community with expertise in education, curriculum development, technology, law, and so much more, we must better utilize our local resources and include our community into these decisions, at the very least through surveys and open forums. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I haven't seen any requests for community input regarding this matter. This is a huge decision, a 5-year contract that is being renewed. I got a survey yesterday through the parent portal, and I don't know if you guys engage in conversation. Maybe I missed it. I mean, that's possible. I get a lot of things. But I did get something yesterday, a survey requesting our input regarding the new no phone ban. So my question is, how do you pick and choose what the community gets surveyed on? And why something so significant as a renewal for the superintendent, why the community does not have the opportunity to chime in and really understand what criteria and protocols are put into place and what benchmarks are being utilized to understand the progress and what he's being measured by. Not just him, but everyone. I mean, it's a trickle effect, right? So I respectfully ask that you hold on to a decision until the community has input. Again, I'm indifferent, I'm impartial. My kids are out of the school district in another year, but I am invested in this community. I'm invested in the community because I'm here long term, and at the end of the day, every single one of us who owns property in this school district should be concerned, because one of the driving forces is good schools. So when our numbers go down, and our data goes down, and our school scores go down, that's a reflection, and our property values will go down, undoubtedly. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Carol Traver. I live on Radnor Avenue. My son, Chris, who graduated a little over 10 years ago, received an excellent education in the Croton Harmon School District. He benefited from a number of programs and policies in effect during that time, including enrichment programs at CET, honors programs at the high school, scheduling flexibility that provided him with the ability to take multiple science and math APs, and a robust science research program that enabled him to become an Intel Science Talent Search national finalist. His education in Croton prepared him very well for further success in college at Cornell University and now in his career. As someone who believes in the importance of quality public education and who would like current and future Croton children to benefit from that, as my son did, and also as a property owner concerned about the impact of the school district's academic reputation and property values, I'm very troubled by what appears to be a decline in the focus on academics in our school district. With respect to the renewal of the superintendent's contract, I would just like to echo what was previously said. Given that the board is required under the contract to meet with the superintendent each year to determine the criteria, goals, and objectives on which the superintendent's performance is to be evaluated, I believe it is very important for the public to understand exactly what those criteria, goals, and objectives are. To my knowledge, that information has not been widely disseminated, and it should be. As the others have said, I ask that the board board hold off for the time being on the renewal of the contract, and that there be further information disseminated to the public. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Gwen Glazer. I live on Sunset Drive. I'm a parent of a 5th grader, and I'm here today to speak in support of Mr. Walker. I think he is doing a tremendous job. After watching the budget presentation, I was impressed with his grasp on the day-to-day activities of the school and his willingness to engage with both the children and the parents. He has met with me in person twice in response to me reaching out by email. Both times, in fact, he did not do the thing I was hoping he would do. I was not pleased with the outcome of either meeting, but what I was pleased with was that he heard me out and genuinely listened to what I had to say. Doing what I wanted and listening to me, those are not the same thing. I view that as a strength for someone in a leadership position. I do not expect a superintendent to do the bidding of one single individual. I do expect a superintendent to listen to all of the individuals and groups and to meet with colleagues and advisors. I want them to synthesize information from the whole picture that I, as an individual parent, might not see or know and come to a decision. I want to be able to trust them, and I believe Mr. Walker has earned that trust. I also want a superintendent to look out for students and families whose voices they might not be hearing, including those who fear for their safety in the current political climate. I am deeply worried about those families in our community. I am also very worried about the mental health of their kids and all of our kids living through times when our own federal government is trying to make us less safe, whether it's through sending ICE into elementary schools or eliminating vaccines or cutting funding to the Department of Education. We need leaders who listen and respond, but also leaders who use their own experience and judgment to guide them and who don't cave to bullies. We need all of you to plan for the bad things and the good things that can happen in our schools. I believe Mr. Walker is up to this challenge, and I commend the board on his contract renewal. I hope it is renewed. I wish all of you a successful and productive 5 years.
Andrew Dykeman, Thompson Avenue, stones throughout the PVC. Two things I wanted to mention. CET Tiger Days. Sounded great, but it seems to be a poor usage of time. Replaces crucial instruction time, breaks up routine, and to my ear, my child and her peers and their parents, it's been very unengaging, and nobody's really looking forward to it. Second point is, reliance on Delta Math has been very frustrating. It doesn't seem to be an accurate measure of the absorption of instruction in mathematics, or testing progress in the subject, or identifying pitfalls and roadblocks for students. And myself and other parents with whom I've spoken to on this topic would like to see a reduction in the touchpad and the screen environment, particularly for mathematics, and a drive back to pencil and paper. That's all. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. Jill Anderson, O'Reilly Court.
Excuse me?
Sorry, can you hear me now?
You are.
Oh, I'm sorry, Jill Anderson, O'Reilly Court. I'm not used to my phone. Okay. As a parent of a rising CET third grader and kindergartner, I strive to be actively involved in supporting our school community. I not only care deeply about our children, families, and teachers as a Croton parent, but also as an educator and parent workshop facilitator who strives to continually improve the well-being of families. Tonight, I'm here to advocate for a critical positive change. We really need to drastically improve the partnership between our schools and our community. There's a noticeable gap between our schools and our families, and we need to close it through genuine collaboration. I constantly hear questions and concerns that highlight this disconnect. What is the STAR exam, and why are these scores posted without communication? Why don't report cards include reading levels anymore? Why was the enrichment program dismantled without explanation? Will it come back? Do we have to keep Tiger Days and House Days? Why aren't teachers supplied with a robust lending library and book baggies to facilitate reading from actual books? Why isn't there a clear curriculum on each grade level, and why is only outdated information available online? Why are we following a FLES full immersion Spanish program when we are not following the model appropriately, resulting in turning many children off to foreign languages? Why did the district stop creating family-friendly monthly district calendars? Many parents are confused. A Google Calendar link buried on a school website is simply not sufficient. I've actively worked to bridge gaps as they arise. When I saw and experienced that not all families felt welcome to participate in their child's education, I joined the PTA Executive Council to restructure the CET class parent system, promoting equity and ensuring all families have access to meaningful involvement by creating the addition of class helpers. More recently, after multiple emails requesting an elementary workshop on smartphones and technology concerns, I confirmed nothing was planned for CET and volunteered to lead my own Navigating Parenting in the Digital Age workshop. Over 70 parents attended, an incredible turnout demonstrating our community's eagerness for support and collaboration on this topic. I want to sincerely thank the administrators and the board members who attended. Your presence truly mattered. A special thank you to Craig, Anna, so afraid of butchering your name. It's okay. Not only did you go, but your kind feedback and support after the event really left me optimistic that we can collaborate and make a difference. I want to join any specific committees to help address these wide-ranging concerns, but we really do need systematic change. The district, unlike many others, does not conduct parent surveys or partner with families in creating positive change. I recognize you just got the smartphone survey. These are critical for gathering essential feedback before decisions are made. Take Diaper Day, for example. It was introduced without parent input, and despite valid concerns raised prior to the pilot, it continued as formatted by the district, leaving parents, teachers, and children unhappy. We were not given the option to dismantle the program, but the district decided to decrease it to once a month. Parents and educators are vital stakeholders, and we need to bring them into the conversation before, not after, decisions are made. It's clear we have important work ahead. I urge you to honestly address these communication gaps. Okay. Even though I lost some time with my time, I really believe we can do better, and I'm here ready to help however I can, and I really ask that you please all do the same. Thank you.
Don Laird, Irving Ave, just over here. Good evening, members of the board, administrators, and fellow community members. My name is Don Laird. I'm a proud parent of a kindergarten student and a preschooler. I'm also a public school teacher myself in a nearby district, and someone who has always strongly believed in the mission of public education. That's why it is with real profound disappointment, as well as growing concern, that I speak to you tonight about what I've experienced so far in the Croton-Harmon School District, particularly at CET. As educators and parents, we can all likely agree that the school's primary purpose is to provide a rigorous and enriching academic foundation. Yet, when I look at recent test assessment data, I can see troubling trends. In 2018-2019 school year, the last year before COVID, proficiency in ELA for CET third graders was around 70%. This past year, it was 58%. Days like Tiger Day and House Day may be fun, but they accumulate, and they can start to distract from deeper and more meaningful learning. Activities that are meant to build connection and joy should never come at the expense of challenging instruction or the development of real, personalized relationships between teachers and students. My deepest concern, though, is overuse of technology in the classroom, particularly through iPad use and reliance on video. To give some context, my son comes home from kindergarten describing advertisements he sees on screens in the classroom. He tells us they watch a video of someone reading a book rather than having someone read them a book in person. Library is my son's favorite class because he gets to play on iPads. And during snack time, instead of chatting with peers or taking a quiet break, the class watches shows and TV on the smartboard. These aren't isolated incidents. They paint a picture of a classroom where technology is being used to subdue and distract students rather than engage and develop them. He explains that videos are used in every single classroom. When we've tried to discuss these concerns with his teacher, we've been met with vague reassurances like everything's fine, but no meaningful response. That lack of partnership and clarity is disheartening. Seesaw, despite being promoted as a learning tool, contributes to passive screen time and replaces deeper instructional and interpersonal engagement and tactile learning. Apps like it may seem engaging, but engagement alone does not equal effective learning. Another major concern we've experienced with the foreign language instruction at CET. It's the 90% immersion model used once every 8 days. It's not developmentally appropriate. This drop-in immersion program leads to confusion, frustration, and resistance. Our son, who last year loved Spanish immersion summer camp, now doesn't want to return, just because he felt lost during his Spanish class this year. Instead of fostering the love of language, this model is breeding resentment and avoidance. It is out of step with what research shows works for early language learning. Consistent, small exposures reinforced over time, not full immersion with long gaps in between. All this leaves us feeling that our son is not being meaningfully challenged, supported, or inspired to love learning. We recently toured St. Augustine's and made the decision to send both our children there this fall. That is heartbreaking for us. As a lifelong supporter of public schools, I never imagined I'd be walking away from public school. I raised these concerns with our superintendent a couple weeks ago by email,
I'm so sorry.
and he didn't respond appropriately.
Is there anyone else who'd like to speak?
Hello, I'm worried about the feedback. I'm Allie Fraze, I live on Radnor Avenue. I am here as a concerned community member. I'm concerned that a vocal minority of community members are painting our schools in such a negative light that new residents and incoming first-time kindergarten caregivers are feeling scared about what their kids can expect this upcoming school year. So from one very involved community member and parent to others hearing this, here's a little insight into your child's potential future at Croton Harmon. Today, my spouse and I attended the 3rd grade career fair. Our child has been working on their presentation for weeks. They researched a career as an elementary teacher because they have loved every single one of their teachers from kindergarten through 3rd grade at CET. They're one of those kids who still visits their 2nd grade teacher's classroom on a weekly basis to share everything they have been up to. We got to walk around all of the 3rd grade classrooms today to speak to the students and learn more about their projects. They have researched a variety of potential careers, including geology, fashion, architecture, the law, environmental studies, interior design, being a store manager, animation, professional sports, midwifery, and zoology. I spent 15 minutes chatting with one of my child's classmates, who I had never met up to this point, about everything there is to know about paleontology. Some of our future bakers even brought treats they had baked themselves. In the clearly many hours that our kids spent preparing and researching their passion topics, they also learned about metamorphosis by creating butterfly sanctuaries and raising multiple larvae to adult butterflies, generating and organizing data, bar graphs, and line plots, worked on reading comprehension, and studied the geography, economy, government, and culture of various countries, among countless other things. I can't help but wonder how everything our CET students have learned over the past year and throughout their elementary experiences will shape their futures as complex thinkers, self-directed learners, and contributors to our communities. With that in mind, let me share some of the many amazing places our high schoolers are headed to this coming fall. The universities of Michigan, Virginia, Maryland, Boston, RPI, Trinity Dublin, UCLA, Yale, Savannah College of Art and Design, Lehigh, and many others. Our Croton Harmon graduates are planning to study finance, film, urban studies, neuroscience, biology, biomedical engineering, psychology, statistics, journalism, mathematics, baking and pastry arts, and other amazing fields. They were all at one time 3rd graders, researching potential future careers, being shaped and supported by our educators and their families, and I am sure that everyone who has supported them and educated them over the years is so proud of all they've done and all they will continue to accomplish. There is so much to be proud of in our district, in our community, and in our students. There is, of course, always work to be done, but please, as community members, as caregivers, let's not forget to lift up all the success, joy, hard work, and accomplishments of our students and those who teach them. Thank you.
Is there anyone else? At this point, we move into item 2.3, the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Anna. Good evening, everybody. I want to begin, Josh, on behalf of the administration, to have spent 12 years of a life volunteering time away from your family in an effort to make the schools better for other people's children is a remarkable, remarkable gift. Your intellectual curiosity, your dedication, your passion for this work, your unerring focus on ensuring that our schools are great for all students have made all of us better. Your questions, your drive, you have made all of us better. You made our schools better. And on a lighter note, your fashion choices give us something great to talk about whenever. So it has been a genuine honor and privilege to have worked with you. And I know that the relationship doesn't end as you leave the board, but on behalf of the entire administration and countless staff members and families and students, thank you. Welcome. For the report this evening, and Greg, thank you as always for assembling the slide deck. I thought it would be a good opportunity just to take a quick retrospective on the year. Obviously, there have been innumerable wonderful moments during the course of this year, but this is one of those times of the year, I think, for all of us where it's a breakneck pace, right? And everybody's tired, everybody's exhausted, but amongst all of the events are moments, celebrations that young people in our community and their families will take with them for the rest of their lives. And those of us at this table and in this audience, and those of us who work in the buildings here, we have the privilege of being present for those. And so I thought it would be good just to take a moment to think about some of the other amazing moments from this year as we spend some time over the next couple of weeks celebrating the amazing accomplishments of the young people of our community. So, harkening all the way back to August, which in some ways feels like forever ago, we welcomed some amazing new members of the Tiger faculty, and we've spent a really good amount of time over the past 2 or 3 years refining and revising our hiring processes so that the people we bring to the students of this community, we're confident not only are creative, but are collaborative, are innovative, who understand what it is that the potential of public school can be, and are prepared to enact that here. So we celebrated them then, and I had a chance to see a number of them today as the last day of classes at the high school, and congratulate them on a wonderful first year, and we look forward to having all of them back for next year to continue to do some phenomenal work with our students. We also welcomed the entire faculty and staff back at Superintendent's Conference Day. The energy, the potential of having that many people focused on one thing in the same room at the same time to start a journey together is not something I can fully articulate, but that the opportunity to address all of these phenomenal people as we start every year is one of the great, great gifts of this job and of my life. I did also want to say that I think one of the unique things about this day each year, and it'll continue in August of 2025, is the faculty and staff walk in knowing exactly what the priorities and the work of the district is for the upcoming year. And that is different than so many systems where initiatives constantly change and the direction constantly changes. The direction of the district continues. The faculty knows that, supports it, and will be ready to continue to pursue that work as we return in August of 2025. We also began the implementation of our first 4 interdisciplinary core courses at the high school, all of whom we've had a chance to spend extended time in this year and gotten a chance to see some really tremendous and innovative learning opportunities and experiences for our students. Those now expand to 9 interdisciplinary courses at the high school for next year and the beginning of interdisciplinary work in the humanities at PVC. And we started to see other districts in the region begin their own work in this area. So we're thrilled by all of the faculty who have spent so much time over the past 18 to 24 months developing these learning opportunities, and all of them who are taking the thoughtful risk of taking on that work for the first time in September. We also took a moment back in the fall. I want to take a moment again tonight to thank what is the best in the business buildings and grounds team. These folks are truly remarkable in terms of their detail orientation, their work ethic, and their commitment to making sure our buildings are clean and safe. In addition, of course, navigating what is a record-size facilities project for our district and doing it so well under the leadership of Brad and of Denise. We continue to be just incredibly proud of them, and so we thank them again as we did back in the fall. I want to mention briefly just Laura Dubak, John Griffiths, and I had the opportunity to be invited to present on the vision map and the work of the district at a statewide school superintendent's conference back in the fall, and received just phenomenal feedback, and I think most importantly began to develop some relationships with similarly minded districts from throughout the state. It was an honor to get a chance to represent this community in that kind of setting, and thank, of course, the board for their support in that opportunity. Also back in the fall, the high school was recognized at the platinum level, the highest level, by the College Board, who puts together the advanced placement assessments, not only for the performance of our students and the range of assessments that our students perform well on, but on the way that we provide access to AP courses and tests for all students without gatekeeping, as so many other districts do, which restricts certain students' access to advanced placement. So that, among the numerous recognitions that our students receive from an academic perspective, that's as good as it gets. It really is. And I think represents the quality of the system in a number of different ways, not only from an academic perspective, but from an equity perspective. And everybody who's involved in the system. We celebrated it then and we celebrate it again now. Also saw the introduction of the zero period at PVC. And you see Mrs. Kelly there with her advisory group. That's an opportunity on a regular basis for all members of the staff and student body to come together to work on topics and learning that's of interest to them, as well as advisory and some really important developmental conversations around social emotional learning and how you navigate the world and school as a young person in a world that we know is getting increasingly complex. So I applaud Michael and Nicole and the entire faculty and staff for moving forward that vision map related innovation, and we saw some great success with it this year. Look forward to its continued iteration next year. Also saw the launch of academic concentrations at the high school, which we continue to believe marks the high school in one of many ways as different and unique in our region, allowing our students to stand out in an incredibly competitive collegiate application environment. And so we thank Reedy for her leadership and vision in that. Here's an example of some of our interdisciplinary course students and STEM academic concentration students working with the Western STEM Alliance, one of innumerable opportunities that those students had this year to extend their learning beyond the core curriculum. Also, we spent some time learning with and from the New York State Board of Regents around the New York Inspires program. Wow, a musical interlude. And I think what we took from that, what we don't normally lift up the work of the State Education Department, and we think in this case, their vision for what public education can be in the state aligns so directly with the vision of this system. We really see it as underscoring and supporting the work that's been involved here, and so we applaud the Chancellor, Ben Rosa, and the entire Board of Regents for that vision, and we look forward to seeing where it continues to head for all of public schools in New York State in the years to follow. Also want to mention that this was the second iteration of the seasonal Meet the Coaches Night. When we talk about under the leadership of Christine, building a culture of support and success among our athletic program, bringing everyone, student athletes, coaches, and families together as we begin each season is an integral part of that. I had a chance to attend several of them, including the winter season session, where prior to the parent arrival, all of our coaches had a chance to spend some time with JCK Foundation and other regional resources helping to support how our coaches best engage student athletes around mental health conversations. Obviously a critical aspect of their work as leaders in our community. So I applaud Christine and the entire athletic department for continuing that really important work with our coaches and student athletes. Also launched for the first time our faculty professional learning study groups, led by administrators including Rachel and others, as well as faculty members, covering a range of important and faculty directed professional learning topics. We're one of the few districts that I'm aware of in the region who has approached professional learning in this particular way. It's been a terrific success. And I thank the CTA leadership for their support and collaboration in this, and all the faculty who participated and facilitated in it. We look forward to year 2. Also, for the first time, launched the MLK Day of Service and Education with our wonderful community colleagues at the Croton Free Library. And a number of faculty and staff from the high school who were a part of that really 2-day process where students spent time planning certain community events and supports and then implemented them later in the year. And the feedback from the students in terms of how meaningful that was to them was one of the highlights for the year for me in terms of hearing that from them. So we look forward to continued work in this area as we move forward to 25-26. Also spent time as an entire community celebrating Sonia and Ava, our outstanding valedictorian and salutatorian from the class of 2025. I had a chance to speak to them the other day. They're still working through their speeches for graduation. I told them I hadn't started mine yet, so I think maybe made them feel a little bit better. But these, when we talk about young people who represent what this community and school district community can produce for the world, these are 2 wonderful examples of that. So we look forward to hearing from them as an entire community on the evening of graduation in 2 weeks. Also celebrated several members of our high school who were recognized for their outstanding contributions regionally to the arts community. And we thank the Croton Museum of Art for sponsoring the 2025 Westchester Young Artist exhibit, and thank all of our phenomenal art faculty and student artists who are a part of making that such a special part of our school district experience. Also, one of the things that we've been focusing on for a couple of years now is this idea of multi-grade, multi-age learning experiences. And this was one that was really beautiful, I think, for so many of us who had a chance to be there, where English language learners from the high school got a chance to come to CET in partnership between some of our E&L teachers and second grade teachers and read fairy tales as part of the second grade fairy tale unit and kind of story design and teach our second graders, and in both English and Spanish, and to get a chance to speak not only to our second graders who were wowed by the experience, but by our high school students who, I will say, got on the bus very confident about how this was going to go, and when they got in front of students, I think they realized it's a much more nerve-wracking experience than they thought. That was one of those special moments that not only involves really important core curricular learning, but also lifts the confidence of some of our students. And that's, as much as the curricular learning, a life lesson that I think they'll take with them for a long time. So it was a privilege to be there. Also want to again thank Brad and Denise and everybody who's involved in making the Future Facilities project now truly a reality, as we see not only Spencer Field, but the Innovative Learning Center, the amphitheater, the auditorium, the library at CET come together. All of this will be completed by the end of the summer. And for all parents who are entering the system now, and we said this to them at the incoming kindergarten orientation, they've chosen to enroll their students here at a really special time for the school district. So they'll have now 13 years of experience in accessing what are some really top-level, innovative instructional and learning spaces, and some really phenomenal, innovative instructional experiences across the system. I said before, I don't have great words to express how beautiful it was to see unified sports launch here for the first time. The bowling meet, the basketball game, those are two moments that, there aren't a lot of moments that make me cry at work anymore. Those were two. And to watch the parents of some of our young people with special needs watch their children play basketball on the court at the high school, probably for the first time in their children's lives, was an incredible, incredible opportunity to be present for. So we thank Rachel, we thank Christine, Steve Palanzar, Kevin Burnell, everybody who made that first-time program such an amazing success for some truly exceptional children in our system. We also welcome the incoming class of 2039, believe it or not, from Croton Harmon High School. And it's always such an honor to get a chance to be there and engage with incoming families into the system and how excited they are, and to be able to tell them that we're going to be alongside them for what's going to be, for them, a 14-year journey, including K through 12 and UPK. So thank you to Rachel and the PPS office for organizing that, and our wonderful community partners at the UPK sites. Also, for the first time, and the board knows about this because Avery was here to present it, we featured what's called the Tiger Sports Showcase. Again, as part of kind of building a longer-term culture of success and a system that values student athletes and athletics. The Sports Showcase was an opportunity for...
I think so. Why?
That's your turn. The Sports Showcase was an opportunity for some of our varsity level students, JV level students, and their coaches to meet with the families of younger students to help them not only learn skills and perhaps interest in a sport, but also look at older students and older student athletes as potential role models and people they want to be like, that they see within our community. And that's a critical part of building a culture of success within an athletics program. And so we applaud Avery. This is truly a student-facilitated, student-directed, student-led passion project that she made come to fruition, along with great support from the athletic office and all of our coaches. So that was a wonderful, wonderful evening, as well as our sports banquet, which this year was held at the Crotonville center and was attended, I think, by over 200 people, including myself and several administrators and board members. And so again, we thank all of our student athletes and coaches for a really successful end celebration of a wonderful year. And thanks again to Christine and Carla and everybody who made that event possible. Also, we saw 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th graders at separate times at PVC present their passion pursuits. The energy in the building on all 4 of those mornings and afternoon were exceptional. And so many of the presentations, I think, wowed so many of us in terms of the training, the depth of the work that students had done. I think there's some real opportunity to continue to build upon that and grow that in terms of its rigor and depth in impacting the system in the future. And I look forward to Michael and Nicole and our faculty continuing to work toward that end. Also this week, we celebrated some of the phenomenal accomplishments of our students at the high school across all disciplines, all aspects of the school experience. Again, when we talk about building a culture in a school where students value each other and value the accomplishments of their classmates across an entire building, to put 500 students and faculty in the same place at the same time and watch how our students, grades 9 through 12, support each other, cheer for each other, and lift each other up is a beautiful, beautiful thing that doesn't happen everywhere. And to watch the connections between our faculty and the students is just another indication of how special it is to be a Croton Norman Tiger. So thank you to Laura, to Mark, to Erica, and to the entire faculty and our community partners who were there that morning to celebrate our students. And now we shift to the next couple weeks, right? And again, the moments where we all get a chance to be present as a community to lift up not only the exiting grade 4 students at CET as they enter PVC and the exiting grade 8 students at PVC as they enter the high school, but of course to celebrate the amazing accomplishments of the CHHS class of 2025. So I look forward to seeing all our friends on the board and many members of the community at some amazing events for our entire school district over the next couple of weeks. I think that's it, Greg. Right? Thank you very much, Anna.
Thank you. Moving into the Code of Conduct public hearing, item 3.1. Recommended action, be it resolved that the Board of Education hereby opens the public hearing on the proposed modifications to the Code of Conduct Policy 5300.
So moved.
Second.
On the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries.
It's a general statement on the Code of Conduct that there were several proposals here. It's not that one was expressed. I was sitting behind a particular board member at the time when he was concerned about misgendering, which is a broad category. Obviously, there's a lawsuit against this Board of Education right now about freedom of speech. And there's a escape clause in your code of conduct and your policies and procedures manuals that what you do does not violate federal law. I'm hoping for the liberation in your schools of conservative and religious students from the oppression of wokeness, which came on with a wave in this school district in 2020 with the establishment of your DEI committee under a set of radicals from New York City, one of whom who wrote New York State policy, Mr. Kirkland. I like the guy, but he was crazy. But he wrote New York State policy. And so there was a wave of wokeness that came across the schools. So much so that, one of your students in a mob, a little mob of about 4, threw bottles of water at myself and my friend who was walking out in front of the school, and then came over and spit at us. That was the intensity of what was going on in your schools in 2020. By the way, when everybody goes to the flag ceremony, oh, what a tolerant community. This is an intolerant community. This is an intolerant community of minority opinions. Your schools are intolerant of minority opinions. You've made no effort as far as your leadership in your schools, meaning the principals, who should have gone out of their way to set up conservative clubs and bring in outside speakers that are conservative. No effort whatsoever. It's like you're afraid of public comment. So my hope is, especially for the boys, but for the girls too, is that they will wrap themselves around the First Amendment. They will speak up what they say. They will do so in a respectful manner, because they are admits some of their fellow students are disabled, some are mentally disabled, some are psychologically disabled. So you should be kind and respectful, but that should not make you compliant in thought control, in pronoun control, in flag control, in shirt control. So my hope for this school district is the minority, especially the boys, but the girls too, rise up, seize their rights, act on them, speak on them, and organize them. Thank you.
If there's no one else, we'll move to point 3.3, adjourn the public hearing. Recommended action be it resolved, the Board of Education hereby adjourns the public hearing on the proposed modifications to the code of conduct. So moved.
Second.
On the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion carries. Item 3.4, policies for second reading. Recommended action be it resolved, the Board of Education conducts the second reading and adopts policy 5300 code of conduct as presented.
So moved.
Second. On the question,
Let me just say a little bit as the chair of the policy committee. The revisions to the code of conduct were discussed and approved by the policy committee after several meetings. They were also reviewed by council, reviewed by both the board and the units, all of whom provided comments to us. The policy committee, many of the revisions are just cleaning up language, etc. There is one change from the policy that you saw at first reading. One of the members of our board noted that there was a duplication of certain language on page 17 and 18. So we have policy determined that duplication should be eliminated by taking some wording out of page 17, paragraph or subparagraph 1, which concerns the obligation of the Board of Education to conduct its meetings in a courteous, respectful manner. And that is indicated on our responsibilities in paragraph 7 on page 18. That duplication was removed, and I think it has been always this board's commitment in all the years that I've served on this board that we will conduct our meetings in a courteous, respectful, and professional manner. The other thing is just to note is that on certain pages, there's page 25 in particular, and elsewhere, there is a reference to the necessity for students to comply with the cell phone policy and district policies in that regard as part of their obligations or what would be considered to be prohibited conduct by a student. As we've discussed previously, the state legislature adopted as part of the budget and the governor signed a provision that supposedly will establish a quote bell-to-bell cell phone ban in the schools. The regulation, or the statute says that by August 1st, the board is supposed to have in place that policy, which the policy committee is working on along with the administration. And rather than say something more specific about what those limitations will be, the reference is cross-reference, if you will, to the policy that will be adopted. Similarly, on page 26, in the section regarding prohibited conduct known as academic misconduct, there is the addition of language that says that it is academic misconduct to submit works created by or with the use of generative artificial intelligence if prohibited by the student's teacher. And the reason it's written in that manner at this point in time is because it will be the teacher, and obviously on a consultation will work with the building administration and perhaps central office administration to determine how generative AI may or may not be used in the classroom setting. Just more for the board's information and for the public's information, at the committee meeting, policy committee meeting on the 2nd of June, we discussed the what might be done by the board to establish a policy, the administration to establish rubrics and guidelines for the use of artificial intelligence in the our educational setting, which is a longer term project that we will and administration will be working on. But for purposes of the code of conduct, we just want to make it clear, the committee does, that where we have a teacher that has not permitted the use of generative AI in the classroom or in papers, the breach of that would be considered to be academic misconduct. The other changes to note, just in general areas, is there's some tightening up of language regarding off-campus conduct that would be considered to be by a student, that would be considered to be a breach of the code of conduct because it has direct impact, not going to go through the whole language, on the educational process for endangered students in school. And revisions also in the corporal punishment language to conform with law and regulation, and a change in the subject of police involvement in searches and interrogations to conform to law, and to, among other things, to make it clear that only that law enforcement officers will be permitted to enter the school for purposes of effecting an arrest or interrogation, only if they have a judicial warrant signed by a federal or state judge. And lastly, there's some changes to the requirement or the obligations with pertaining to visitors to our schools to ensure that their conduct conforms with our expectations, and what the penalties or consequences will be if there is a breach of those standards that are set. That's basically what's in there. We had an opportunity, first reading was on the 5th, and we had an opportunity for a public hearing today. If there are any questions for the committee by the board at this point, we'll move. I'd be glad to entertain it.
All in favor?
So we're gonna have thoughts. Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion carries. Moving into item 4.1, instructional personnel. Recommended action be it resolved that the Board of Education hereby accepts the instructional personnel resignations as presented.
So moved.
Second.
On the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. Item 4.2. CHHS Assistant Principal Appointment Verification. Recommended action be it resolved the Board of Education upon the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools hereby appoints Erica Fiorini as a 1.0 FTE high school building assistant principal, high school assistant principal tenure area at the Fulton County High School at a salary of $165,000. Ms. Fiorini is appointed for a 4-year probationary term as a high school building assistant principal commencing on July 1st, 2025, and probationary term ending on June 30th, 2029. Ms. Fiorini has initial certification as a school building leader.
So moved.
Second.
On the question?
So, would it be possible just to get a little bit of background on the rationale for this for the benefit of the community listening?
Sure. First, Erica is exceptionally well qualified to be part of the leadership team at CHHS since she already is, right, and has been an outstanding member of the faculty and dean of students for many years. We see it as the work of the high school continues to increase in its complexity in terms of not only the involvement of interdisciplinary courses, but the academic concentrations and so many of the other things that we've been talking about as a school district community over the past couple of years. That to structure the building leadership in a way that would allow for Laura, Mark, and Erica to divide responsibilities in ways that the current structure doesn't allow for. Because Erica is currently a member of the teaching unit, we think makes sense not only for the building now, but for where we see the trajectory of the building forward.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. Item 4.3, instructional personnel recommendation. Recommended action be it resolved that the Board of Education upon the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools hereby appoints Allison DiCarlo as a 1.0 FTE AIS teacher, elementary tenure area at the Pierre Van Cortlandt Middle School at a salary of $112,003. NA plus 30, step 13. Mr. Carlo is appointed to a 3-year probationary term as an AIS teacher commencing on August 27th, 2025, and probationary term ending on August 26th, 2028 in the tenure area of elementary. Mr. Carlo has professional certification in childhood education, grades 1 through 6.
So moved.
Second.
On the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carried. Item 4.4, instructional personnel recommendation. Recommended action be it resolved, Board of Education hereby approves the instructional personnel appointments as presented.
And I think just to be clear, we're talking about Mr. Ranieri to teach a summer math course and Ms. Gonzalez to also provide work during the summer.
As listed on the agenda.
It's on the agenda. Okay. In case that's just for the people who may not have the agenda as their option.
Okay.
Are we moving? Second.
On the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Moving into new business, item 5.1. Recommended action be it resolved, the Board of Education hereby approves a memorandum of agreement between the Corwin Hardeman Union Free School District and the Civil Employees Association, Local 1000 AFSCME, AFL-CIO, Corwin Hardeman High School Clerical Unit number 9159-01 as presented.
So moved. Move.
On the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion carries. Item 5.2, side letter of agreement with the CTA, recommended action be resolved, the Board of Education hereby approves the side letter of agreement between the Croton Harmony Union Free School District and the Croton Teachers Association as presented.
So moved.
Second.
On the question? All in favor?
I'm
sorry.
Just a moment. I understand that this is to enable a subset of teachers to teach additional sections above the contract amount. Are we satisfied that all the teachers involved will be able to do that, to handle that additional load? And is there any concern on that, or?
No, we're talking about a short period of time associated with the medical leave of a child.
Understood. Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion carries. Item 5.3, amendment to employment agreement of the superintendent. Recommended action, whereas the Board of Education of the Croton Harmony Union Free School District has previously appointed Stephen Walker as the superintendent of schools for the district. And whereas the Board of Education of the Croton Harmony Union Free School District seeks to extend the employment of Mr. Walker as superintendent of schools for the school district and to approve an amendment to his employment agreement to address the terms and conditions of his continued employment. Now, therefore, be it resolved, the Board of Education of the Croton Harmony Union Free School District hereby appoints Stephen Walker to the position of Superintendent of Schools for a 5-year term of appointment commencing on June 12, 2025, and ending on June 11, 2030, hereby rescinding all prior appointments of Mr. Walker for any given term of appointment, and be it further resolved that the Board of Education of the Croton Harmony Union Free School District hereby ratifies and approves an amendment dated June 12, 2025 to the employment agreement dated July 1st, 2023 between Stephen Walker and the Board of Education, and authorizes the President of the Board to execute the same.
So moved. Second.
On the question?
I just want to say that I will be supporting this resolution. We, as members of the board and we as members of the community and observing, have had the opportunity to observe the performance of the superintendent and interact with him and interact with members of our community, including staff, other administrators, parents, and students, and I at least have full confidence in what has been accomplished to date, and confidence that we will continue our upward trajectory to improvement with Mr. Walker at the helm. And I think that it is also noted by one of the members who spoke during the hearing of the public that the salary that Mr. Walker had been provided was low, and in fact, until this resolution was among the very lowest in our region. And one of the things about a larger school district has a greater infrastructure. And I think we have a lean infrastructure in terms of the number of administrative personnel with certain responsibilities, which puts more work on the administrators that we do have. And that is something I think I recognize, and I hope my colleagues recognize. So I'm not at all concerned about some of the questions that were raised in that regard during the hearing of the public.
What about the rest?
Over the course of my 12 years on the board, I've had the opportunity to work with 3 superintendents and And I have to say that while each of them had their gifts and their benefits to our district, I have been absolutely happy to work with Stephen Walker. I think that Steve's devotion to the students of this district and willingness to lean in on what is truly progressive education, lowercase p, that is progressive in that it finds new ways to interact and engage with students, with all students, not just those that fit the standardized bill of a high-performing student, but with all students, is really what I wanted to see for this district and continue to want to see for this district. It is so critical to be willing to try on new ideas and at the same time to be able to look at them and turn them over and change courses when appropriate. And I appreciate that. This is a different era. Our schools are not the same schools that they were in 2013 or in 2015 or in 2020, and they're certainly not the schools that they were when we were kids in school ourselves. It is a different moment, and I think Steve's the man for that moment. And so I'm proud to support this resolution.
I'd like to chime in and say that I've been a resident of Croton now for more than 20 years and a parent of students at the school district for 11 of those 20 years. And my involvement and the way that I came to the school board was as a community member who felt that there was a need to have greater communication between the community and the school district. One of the things that I've been pleased to see this year is that the district, with Steve's guidance, has embarked on a re-envisioning of how we're going to do that successfully in the coming years ahead as education in the state of New York continues to change, education in this country continues to change, and as our community continues to change. I see this as a real opportunity to build relationships, to recognize what we're seeing as the assets that we have in our community in terms of parents who are interested and really committed and really believe in supporting their students' education. That's one of the reasons why there's so many people here this evening. And that's one of the reasons I think so many people came up to the microphone to speak. It's because we're all sort of like in this together, we really believe in it. What I will say in the last 2 years of having served on this board is I have found Steve to be extremely receptive. Like another parent said earlier this evening, don't always hear the answer that I want to hear when I speak to him. That's just a fact of serving on a board, of being a parent in a community. And I think it's something that all of us have experienced in one way or another when we're interacting with people who are in a position that's different from ours. It happens. However, I will say that in my interactions with him as a parent and as a trustee, and in our interactions with him as a board, I can't speak for all of us, but I can reflect on what we've experienced in these public meetings and in subcommittees. We have found a partner who is willing to listen, who is willing to consider the viewpoints of the broader community, even when he doesn't agree with them. And I think that there's a commitment to working together and to making the experience for all of our students better. That is something that you don't see in every district. We, as trustees, part of our obligation beyond like going to graduation and visiting the passion projects and coming to award ceremonies is actually to engage with school boards and trustees across the county. And as part of our work, I think what we're really starting to recognize is that this is a productive relationship that is benefiting our students, it's benefiting our teachers, and it's benefiting the overall community. Progress comes really slowly, but this is a place I think where people are open to hearing from people who live here, who have an investment in the schools, and there's an openness to listening, understanding, and trying to meet people halfway. I feel like that's a huge change in terms of the first two superintendents that I interacted with when my children started in kindergarten 11 years ago. It's a huge change. I think also that there are opportunities for families, parents, individuals, caregivers to interact with the schools in a way that wasn't possible 11 years ago. And I think that is a testament to the entire staff, to our teachers, to the administrators who've been here for a long time. But at the head of that organization, there's someone who has to set the vision, and that person is Steve. So I wholeheartedly support the extension of his contract. Thank you.
Woo. Thank you for that. No, that was incredibly well said. I don't want to belabor the point, but I did want to note that, thinking back to when we were hiring Steve as a superintendent, one of the main focuses, one of the priorities that we looked at, that we as a board looked at, that we heard from our community, was that we wanted a change maker and a visionary leader. And I think Steve has absolutely answered that call. And I think that his leadership style is one that is truly collaborative and thoughtful. And as Ananga said, that is not something that you see everywhere. And it is appreciated by this board. It is appreciated by our staff, by our administrators and faculty, and by our community. I think Steve is willing to sit down. He is willing to listen to anyone who wants to come and discuss and share their thoughts and concerns. And I wholeheartedly recommend and support this extension. I'm gonna after that commentary stop from the audience. There's another hearing of the public at the close of the meeting. If you have comments, you can approach the podium and speak respectfully at that point. I don't have much to add after all my fellow trustees and what they've said. I wholeheartedly support the extension of this contract. Again, I don't think that we have always seen eye to eye, and maybe the public doesn't understand that, but I wholeheartedly appreciate the work that you're doing here and support this extension. As a trustee, I say to my fellow trustees that I think perhaps we need to, in imagining next year and the work here, convey our process and our evaluation of Steve's performance in a more public way. They need to work on a document or communication with the community regarding.
It's a great idea. Because the work actually happens, but it's difficult for people to know how it happens, and we can attest to how much time we spend doing it.
I also don't want to belabor, I know we gotta get to the vote, but I concur with what my colleagues have said. And I also just want to add that we understand that this is a very difficult job. There's a lot of challenges, a lot of voices to listen to from our teachers, the public, the board members. And honestly, it's, I think the job is really making sure that you are making a difference each year and building to something long-term. And I think that Steve is doing that. And another reason I want to support this resolution is because I think it's extremely important that we have stability over the long term in leadership. That is extremely important for any complex institution, any complex organization, that we have a steady hand and stability over the years. And I truly believe in leadership and the importance of having that stability long term.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion carries. Item 5.4, policies for first reading. This is a discussion.
Well,
My notes are fine.
let's pull them up.
Do you want to introduce first, Neil?
Sure, the policies that are up for first reading are policy 4526.2, use of social media in instruction and official communications, and policy 2901, social media use by trustees. These policies have been crafted by members of the policy committee, including Josh and I were on the policy committee. And when Theo and Josh left the policy committee in July of 2024, the board established an ad hoc committee of the three of us to continue and complete this work. This work has had the extensive involvement and input from administration, from legal counsel, from collective bargaining representatives of our teachers and staff and administrators, and is the culmination of literally hundreds of hours of work. And Josh was the one who had the leading role in this, took it on, created the draft, revised the draft. So at this point, to the extent there's anything that he wants to add or questions about what's there, it's appropriate for Josh to weigh in.
So, when I embarked on these policies, I kind of didn't know what I was getting into. Did not realize quite how complicated it was going to be and how unsettled the legal environment on the topic would be. There have been 2 Supreme Court cases and numerous other legal cases that had bearing. There has been, as is always the case with technology, rapid evolution of the platforms involved. And at the same time, as is true in education, rapid evolution of our understanding as an educational organization and as educational organizations worldwide as to the impact of social media on students, on employees, on faculty. As such, as we approach this, the principal focus became, we realized, on defining what is official communications versus what are personal communications. As a school district, we can't really control personal communications very much, but we want to have an understanding of what is an official communication of the district and make it easy for members of the public and parents and students and employees and everyone involved to understand what is an official message and what is a personal message, all while maintaining individuals' right to free speech. As this evolved, it turned out that it was appropriate for there to be a core policy, that is 4526.2, which contains a large section of definitions, because that's necessary whenever you're doing something that is highly technical, and then a set of rules and a set of guidelines. That is, things that you must do, things that you must not do, and guidelines, which are things that you should do. And that's how it's organized. And it's organized into sections that are separate for school district officials versus students. There is a separate policy, 2901, which addresses specifically the use of social media tools by school board members. Because school board members fall into a slightly different category versus employees. And there are certain other issues that present themselves, considering how, for instance, the fact that school board members may be participating in things like a re-election campaign, for instance, which present certain other potential concerns. So I think these policies do a good job of reflecting the current state of law, the current state of how many school districts around the country and around the world are thinking about social media, the impact of social media on the psychology and psychological well-being of its users, and on the needs of the district. And I recommend them to the board.
Just to add one other thing that was discussed in our meeting on the 10th when we passed this, was just, we realized because of the change in the landscape for whole area of social media, that these policies will need to continually be looked at and updated, because when we started this project, what, 2, 3 years ago, there were, things out there or media platforms that really were not in use and that had been developed since then. And the whole idea of a policy is something that should be written in such a way that it's not so specific that it doesn't have any relevance to something new that comes along. But on the other hand, we know that it may not cover things as times change, as I talked about before with regard to the work that we generative artificial intelligence. So, I think on my behalf, I would say, please review it, board members, and give consideration for both how this 4526.2 appears to, do what we want to do to establish the rules, norms, and expectations for social media use by staff. And the 2901. I should note one other thing, some of the things that are talked about in terms of personal use of social media by employees, by staff members, relate to the fact that something that somebody might do outside of school, whether you're a student or you're an employee, will or can have an impact on the school district. We have seen for years, I have seen newspaper reports and reports on news sites about faculty members in some districts who post things on their personal Facebook page that they have a right to do, but has an adverse impact on their ability to serve as a role model for a school district and a role model for their students. And the district is then put in the position of having to deal with that. And we cannot, as I said, as Josh said, we have to have due regard for the First Amendment rights of those individuals who say something outside of school. So it's a delicate balance, and we hope we have touched on it. The other thing to note as you look at this is there's a section on student use of social media in official communications. It's one of the things that we pride ourselves in this district, and I'm sure other districts do as well, is having student activity with their class, with their team, or their club that involves social media. And if they do, we need to establish understandable and fair rules as to what students will be permitted to do and how our faculty or coaches or club advisors will oversee that work if there is a student Facebook page or Instagram or Twitter or their, or whatever those activities may be, because in the end, that communication can come back to be considered to be a responsibility of the district. So as you can see, just from what Josh said, and what I've said, this is a very complex topic. And I mean, in my research, and I think Josh might concur, I haven't really seen other districts that have created a structure and thought about all of these different concerns and nuances in this area. And so, if there are changes that the board members wish, or the public, if upon reading it, wish to suggest, we certainly will do it. Unfortunately, Josh will no longer be here as part of an ad hoc committee, but as he said, it'll be reachable, and we will make those, you know.
I'll be here for the second. Okay. Even if I'm not gonna be voting on it.
So I have a comment and a question. First, just one of the things that I think was really important to us as a board was to ensure policy, sort of like documenting the use of social media by district staff would not be put forward without a comparable policy for trustees being prepared at the same time. So I very much appreciate that we're able to see both of them alongside each other, because although trustees are not employees of the district, I think we're all operating in the same milieu in many ways, and I think it's really important that we're looking at both of them together, so I appreciate that extra effort. The other question that I have, just sort of generally speaking, in terms of the statement that there are elements of this policy that cover student use of, and I gotta go down to, because it's like 13 pages long, so bear with me for 1 second. Student use of official social media channels, so that when we read this, I would like to understand, are the official social media channels refer to social media channels that are created and or like owned by the district? Or are you talking about like their official communications in terms of channels that they may have initiated themselves, such as like Team Instagram, you know, stuff like that?
Team Instagram, it's a very good question, and I think it's illustrative to explain it. So a team Instagram or a team Facebook page would be an official channel, because it is associated with the team, which is a team which is administered by the school district, assuming that it's a school administered team. That it's, you know, it's a CHUFSD team. If it were their ASO team, then that is not an official social media channel of the school district. And we don't have jurisdiction over that. But we do have, this is really talking about if a class has a Facebook page or a class has an Instagram, and it governs how the students would operate in the context of that channel. And we do have that definitely for many clubs and for teams, and I think some classes as well already.
And then what's the time frame in terms of our review of this, just to understand?
Well, I mean, we have a first reading. I would suggest that the board can have it on the July agenda, but it can also, you know, have it on the August agenda if there's more discussion to be had. Obviously, we'd like to, I think, for the administration and for our staff, students, etc., probably it would be best to have something done by September, so that the start of the year, but there is no time frame, no, you know, as we have with the cell phone policy or the extreme heat day policy that we passed last week. I just want to point out one other thing. The line that Josh was talking about between what is an official social media channel that students have or utilizing through the class club or athletic team doesn't preclude students on their own from creating a Facebook page or something for their affinity interest, which is not the district. However, to the extent that that non-official personal social media
Channel.
Implicates or results in the students engaging in conduct that would be violative of the code of conduct that we just approved, then that would be something that might result in consequences for the students if, once again, like any other outside conduct off of school grounds has an implication or can have an adverse effect on the educative process or endanger students, as we talk about in the code of conduct. So all of, and to the extent, there's thinking about the question phenomenon that you raised, to the extent that there is this gray area, I would hope and assume that those faculty members, coaches, staff members who are responsible for overseeing the team called to class would be sensitive to educating the students and informing students as to what, might occur on their personal communications if they are, something that's bullying or something that otherwise violates the code of conduct.
Thank you.
I want to ask the district and the administration, to review that, because the nuance involved in student-run social media pages is, it's a minefield to navigate regarding
Absolutely.
how you distinguish, as an example, CHUFSD volleyball from, like, I look at these social media pages sometimes and I say, what is this? And it's student runs, even despite its title.
Mhm.
And I would love to hear Dr. Dubat's thoughts on the nuance of all of that. Or I think it needs to be rolled out in alignment with a procedure in terms of how these pages are, and then what do you do with the existing pages right now?
Because I think what you're speaking about is the fact that there's like a wide variety right now, and
Yes.
the fact of the matter is that like students actually do have, federal protection that relates to speech and what they can actually do on social media on accounts that they can integrate themselves. And so, I know this is gonna be vetted and all that stuff, but I think there has to be like a more clear articulation so that we're not putting our students, in line of something that's like a gray area, because at least at the high school level, this is an active form of communication for all of our teams, for all of our classes, for, just so much information gets disseminated in this way.
This is one of the reasons why there's so much language in the policy about how to define what is an official channel versus what is an unofficial channel, and the rules about how the district identifies which are official channels versus which are not.
But my note is more regarding the generation of those pages. There has to be some guidelines in terms of how those pages are
That's procedure,
generated.
yes.
Yeah.
That's my.
Yes, a valid concern.
And whether that's something that's in policy or practice, that's the other question.
Correct.
Right? So we just have to, I think that's what I'm asking about the time frame, Neil, because we have like to write a cell phone policy also imminently. So there's still a lot of policy to be written.
Sure, but with regard to that, I think, quite frankly, as the administrative council has discussion about this, looking at now the first draft, I'm sure, I presume that there's been some discussion even prior to this first draft among administrative council that gave ideas that were communicated to the committee, but as you can see, there are other things they have to think about, and they'll go back, I guess, for work over the summer, to, to have them, and everybody else let us know, okay, what are the pitfalls, or how, if the policy is okay, how they envision the protocols and practices to be implemented at an administrative level to meet what we are looking to do to both have control, but also to protect students' rights under, to speak, and the students' rights to be creative. And that's, that's the hard, it's like, writing a statute and then saying, okay, how are you gonna apply it? And you gotta figure that out.
And also maintain a safe space for learning.
Right. Well, the connection to like discipline, that's
Yes.
that's kind of a
Yes.
concern as well.
Note the very long list of cross references.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Moving into ongoing business, item 6.1, 2025-2026, health and safety committee representatives recommendations. Recommended action be resolved, the Board of Education hereby approves the appointment of the 2025-2026 health and safety committee members as presented.
So moved.
Second.
On the question,
I'm concerned about the number of unfilled positions on this committee. There are, I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, well, Board of Education will be 4 unfilled positions. And I do think that this is an important committee in our district. The events of the last 5 years, even before that, this has been a critical committee for the district. I think it's important for it to be operating on all cylinders. And I would urge the administration and the board to revisit this and put some more effort into identifying members of the community and members of our professional staff and who could step up into these positions.
I will just say that we talked about this during agenda planning. These are not absences. They have not been filled for a long time. It's not just in this.
I understand that.
Right.
Well,
I would say by way of context, without speaking for the CTA leadership, 3 members, ongoing members, the nurses are CTA members. And so there's certainly overlap there with regard to the teacher aides, the clericals, and the transportation unit. Not always easy due to schedules and folks who may have other after-school commitments to get folks who are available to do that. But what typically will happen is if there's a unit-related concern, then of course the unit leadership or membership will bring it to the meeting. But to the point raised earlier, to get them to commit to it on an ongoing basis has just been a challenge. We'll continue to try.
Understood.
But to just, I'm sorry, because I served on this committee as a community member as well. So for whatever reason, we didn't have trouble like about 5 years ago with it. And I think that, again, although the nurses do a wonderful job of representing each of the buildings and their specific areas of concern. I'm wondering if it's like are we not doing an adequate job sort of making sure that staff know about this opportunity, or if maybe we need to do a better job of also being clear about what the expectations and time commitment are. Because I do think that especially with the facilities plan and all the work that's been going on, I'm sure you're hearing from people, and this is a forum that's sort of, being related.
so I would add that I was the board's representative this year. We did have a CTA representative. I don't know if that's unfilled because they couldn't find it. We did not. We also had a representative from transportation.
Well, it's unfilled
And
right
so,
now.
yeah, so I think our point is it's unfilled right now, and it may at some point be filled by some or all of those units. The other thing that we could think about more on policy is going back to the requirement of membership in a health and safety committee. Because we have different categories, and I just don't recall when this policy was adopted in 2015 as required by a change in state law, we defined these as the categories of membership, but I don't recall whether we did that because it was required to have one individual from each bargaining unit and have one from each school and have non-parent community member, et cetera, or that was just something that at the time, the individual who spearheaded this committee, which was Todd Freeburn, actually, let's say, that was the recommendation. So if it's too large a group, and we don't have to have that, and we're not getting clerical to participate or transportation to participate, that might be an adjustment that can be made to the policy. On the other hand, it is important to have all those groups represented because health and safety will be important for all of us.
Well, I'm happy to pull it and look at it and we'll report back in policy committee. here for board.
Well, I don't think we need to pull the appointments
No,
down.
no, we get one.
Policy.
You mean,
Full policy.
Because we're doing
I
policy.
mean, take out the policy and look at it and
That's
see.
generally what full means, but. okay.
Yeah, okay, I thought pull it, you know.
No, I'm saying I'm happy to pull 2015 policy and look at neighboring districts and see what their committee makeup is. And discuss it in
Yeah.
policy committee and report back to you.
And I think just overall, I think, right, that the sense here is that we want to make sure that this is a robust committee, right? It does important work, and we want to make sure that we have representatives from as many different stakeholder groups as possible to the extent.
100%.
Just one thing to point out, my recollection is that there is state law. No, or it possibly commissioner's regulation, I don't remember which, that says that the makeup of a health and safety committee changes when a capital project is underway.
It's addressed. Yes.
Yes, and that's why on this.
Which complicates things.
Well, no, on this.
No, this, we have.
You have
to
it,
have
you have the
construction manager and the.
Right, I do see it, yeah.
which is not necessary if you're not involved in the consultants.
So I think all the questions.
Keep your own too. That's your policy.
Okay, well, thank you.
So I means I know.
All in favor?
Aye.
Abstain? Motion carries. Item 6.2, policies for second readings. Recommended action be it resolved that the Board of Education conducts a second reading and hereby adopts the following board policy as presented.
So moved.
Second.
On the question,
There are a large number of functions that are listed here who were placed on the agenda for first reading on the 5th, second reading today. We have not had any comments or questions that have come from board members or members of the public. There are a couple of policies, though, or segments of policies that I want to note. The first is, when we look at the bullet points, as listed, policy 8113 is the extreme heat condition days policy, which is required by a section of the education law. Districts have a policy in place as to what they will do if the interior temperature in a classroom is above certain temperature. 82 degrees is something to be done, and 88 degrees. You know, there is an obligation to move students out of that classroom. Although not required by state law, this policy as drafted and approved by the committee incorporates requirements with respect to what will happen on extreme heat condition days with regard to recess, with regard to physical education, and with regard to interscholastic athletics, both practices and games. With regard to interscholastic athletics, there are guidelines and regulations that come from the New York State Public High School Athletic Association. Those provisions, the committee is recommending be included in the policy to make clear how we will handle those situations as a district. This has been reviewed by the Director of Physical Education, Athletics, Health and Wellness, who is supported with how that will work in those areas. So that's what's there. There are 6 policies and policy rescissions, maybe even 7, in the recruitment and hiring area, which have been reviewed by Assistant Superintendent Griffiths, and they all conform to what our practices are. Some of those had not been reviewed or changed since 1994. That's why we're updating them. Policy 5281 R is the procedure for identification of middle school students to be approved for playing up. This is one that has been discussed many times over many years by the board, and the change in essence is that the coach of the team in the sport that for which the student may be seeking, may be considered playing up, will be the person who will initiate the process of seeing if the student is interested and capable. Of course, parents will have the opportunity to communicate with the coach to express the desire for their student to be considered, but our previous policy had it being solely the parents' authority, I guess you could say, to initiate that process, and that did not, as the director of physical education, athletics, et cetera, said, didn't work out best for us. Two other things, or two other areas, there was revisions to the school board member ethics regulation and the employee ethics and conflict of interest regulation to just fix something that was inconsistent with the general municipal law and the board reorganizational meeting policy 2210, which should be renamed board organizational meeting policy, which had not been updated for many years, simply removes certain categories of individuals that we do not appoint at the reorg meeting and adding those that we do appoint, just to be consistent with the provisions of the education law and other state laws. So that's everything that's in there, and I don't know if the board has any questions on any of them. If not, we've got them pretty good.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, motion carries. Moving into our consent agenda. Item 7.1, recommended action be resolved, the Board of Education hereby approves all of the items under the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
On the question?
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstain, motion carries. We are now moving into our flow of the meeting and into our second hearing of the public. I'm going to again ask that speakers not speak regarding specific students or staff members.
Hi, Erica Loudon, Penfield Avenue. I just wanted again to note that I don't really know who's making the changes in the curriculum in our schools. I don't know if we have a head of curriculum. We are the only school district in all of Westchester that does not have a PhD as our superintendent or assistant superintendent. I find that to be extremely concerning. I also am deeply concerned as my twin boys who are going into ninth grade are going to be the very last ninth graders that will have a choice as to which science class they want to take. Whether that be chemistry, or whether that be earth science or a different choice, but my kids chose to accelerate, and they chose to do algebra, and they chose to do living environment regions in the 8th grade, and that choice will be taken away for future students, and I don't really know why that choice is being taken away. And that will have implications as they go further into high school, as to what AP courses they will be able to take, and how they will be able to distinguish themselves academically. I don't know who's making that decision. I think that our community deserves answers, and as to someone who said that there is a vocal minority of parents, I'd like to point out that 55% of the voters at the most recent Board of Education election voted for 2 women who were very vocal about academics. This is not a minority, it's a majority. Thank you.
Hello. It's my first time doing this, so I'm not sure if I should state anything in particular.
Your name and your address?
Oh, okay. My name is Ali Kalamia and my address is 13 Lawrence Highland Place. I am concerned with this talk of curriculum and academic rigor. As a teacher and the chairperson of the school leadership team at my high school, I am very familiar with analyzing data and making goals and coming up with ways that we can support students in, having the best opportunity for success in life. I think there are so many different ways that we can assess and measure what our children are doing, and how and what their success looks like. So I'm a little upset by comments that I was hearing from the back of the room that I felt were not having to do with academics. And so, I wish that I had more information. I'm definitely going to be more active in coming and speaking, because it's really important to me that my son, who is in this district, has an opportunity for creativity, for critical thinking, for academic rigor that is inside his head and writing and expressed in so many different ways. I really like what I'm hearing about the interdisciplinary curricula, and I think that we need to move away from looking at test scores, because they're just not an accurate measure of what could make a child successful in this life. Some things that I heard were that associating things like academic rigor with being against certain members of the community, or with the lack of academic rigor with being against certain members of the community. And I just don't see how those things interact in any way. And I feel like other people who are speaking are just not concerned about what actually might happen for a diverse group of students. I feel like it's like very one-sided and very like there's some agenda against a certain community in our school, which is not opportunities for everybody, regardless of the curriculum. I know, I need more information, so I'm gonna be coming back more and I'm going to be figuring out what's going on and what the agenda actually is so that we can all have what's best for all of our students in the community and not take away from certain things. And I just really want to support the teachers, because I feel like talking about data and talking about curricula and who writes the curricula is anti-teacher and
I'm so sorry, I had to cut you off.
Oh, you don't really, I was just getting into it, but
Hey, I'm Renee again, from Mount Airy Road. So your actions tonight have sadly shown me once again that you are to me just a rubber stamping mechanism to the administration. I've been doing, I've been trying to do things with the board for a number of years, and this is always what I felt. And you've just confirmed this tonight. You've just confirmed this to me tonight. The contested board elections this year should have awakened your senses and make you realize that contrary to what you're thinking and saying, there are many parents in this district that are concerned with the lack of accountability, rigor, lack of communication, and the general downward turn that it is taking. As my previous person said, 55% of the votes went toward the other group. But instead of listening tonight, you just blindly went ahead, extended this contract for another 5 years. It seems to me you could have made other choices. Maybe postpone the decision, maybe choose a shorter period of time, but no, you didn't. And the only thing that Mr. Haber seems to have remembered from tonight's statement from the public is about the mention of the salary. If that is all you remembered, this is deeply saddening to me. Thank you.
James Curran, Mount Airy Road. And I just want to say thank you for bringing it up to our attention about the metrics and performance in the future. I do think that level of transparency would be really greatly appreciated to the community. You know, a little too late right now, but I look forward to the future of having that data, having the evaluation, the criteria that we assess individuals. One closing note, though, I've been told that the current 8th grade class at PVC, over 12 students will be leaving the district for the public schools. Do we have any kind of data that shows percentages from the community that are students currently in the public school that are moving out of the public school into private school? I don't know if we have any data of that nature, but it'd be interesting to see that. Thank you.
Susan Shirley, 56 Truesdale Drive. I'm exceptionally disappointed, and not because Mr. Walker's contract was extended, but because only 1 out of 6 of you acknowledged the dozen people who came up here and shared their concerns with you. The parents, the community members, and the taxpayers, all of whom elected those of you represented here to represent us. And so that's very concerning. Anna was the only one who said that she acknowledged that there's greater need for transparency going forward. So my question is, if his contract doesn't end until June 30th, technically, and you acknowledge it, why not gather that information? You guys have that information. Why not share the matrix? Why not share the benchmarks? Why not share everything that you so graciously said about him? And I'm happy that you feel this way, and I haven't had any interaction with him. That's why I said my decision is indifferent whether or not it's extended, and it truly is. But clearly there's a lack of transparency. There's a lack of collaboration. There's a lack of willingness to acknowledge what people said here, whether you agreed with us or not. At least, I don't know, regurgitate what it is that we said. So we say, okay, you not only heard us, but you listened. Because what the message that you're sending as a board is very, very concerning. And then it also leaks into the superintendent who serves under you, right? And like somebody else said, there was definitely a different way that this could have been approached. And then only 1 of 6 of you acknowledged what the dozen of us said this evening, and the concerns that we have is highly concerning. And so I would appreciate if you guys reflected, maybe go back, I don't know, in a week and watch this meeting and listen to what was said, because there's a reoccurring common theme. And that's problematic. And the other thing is that I'm an educator. I teach severely impaired children. They mean the world to me, okay? So when I come up here and I say to you, there needs to be academic rigor, I don't say that this population needs to be discounted or they're lesser than anything else. I don't say that those in the LGBTQ community shouldn't feel safe. I don't say that.
But what I say is that if you're gonna preach equity, then it should be across the board. And those students who strive for academic rigor should not be demonized because they want opportunities to excel. Those students who got into MIT and Stanford and UCLA and all these great schools, why? Because they strive for academic excellence. And they're a generation of 12, 13 years of schooling, and things have changed. We need to reflect.
Yes, hi, my name's Michael Walter. I live in Old Litchfield South, and I am the editor and publisher of the Croton Chronicle. It's very rare that a journalist addresses a public body like this. My purpose is not to address you about the issues of the evening, but about something that is appropriate for me to address you about, and that is the board and the district's media policy. Now, the Croton Chronicle has currently, as of today, 1,210 direct email subscribers in the school district. In the school district, it's taken a long time to get there, but that's what we have. The Chronicle currently has about 76,000 views per month. Some of the stories that get the highest views are stories about the school district and what the administration is doing on the school board. So for the past year, and you can dispute this, but I don't think you will, there's been a policy and practice on the part of the district, on the part of the board, and on the part of the district, in other words, the board president and Mr. Walker, who are the ones who I ask for comment when I'm doing the story, to simply not respond at all to requests for comment from the Croton Chronicle. Excuse me. Which is a little bit odd, because as we all know, as everybody in this room knows, and you know, the Chronicle is the media outlet that does the most coverage of this school district, probably by 10 times, if not more than that. So the policy and practice, which is developed almost a year ago after some discussions that Anna Teague and I had by email, has been that the district clerk, and I appreciate Denise doing this, will provide the Chronicle with factual information, and that the superintendent and the president of the school board will not even respond to requests for comment. This is a policy and practice that you have developed, and I think that it's kind of undeniable. It's very unfortunate, because the result is that I think that you have the perception that all the Chronicle wants to do is negative stories about the district and about the school board. But you haven't really given us very much choice, because we can't even talk to you about the positive stories that we might want to do. There's just absolutely no communication there. One of the ironies of this is that the very first interaction that I had, or among the very first interactions that I had with the district, was when I had a meeting with Mr. Walker and Denise Cohen about an issue having to do with school buses. And some people had advocates of the use of electric school buses had raised issues about this. Denise actually convinced me that there was no story there, because she had done her homework and she knew her stuff. So the lack of communication is really not doing anybody any good. Thank you.
Well, I think Truesdale Drive. Go back to the illegal meeting that was held at the Black Cow. In addition to showing special deference to Croton Pride, which has a disproportionate influence over the conduct of this board, and which initiated that illegal meeting, which was really a pep rally for one of the candidates' friends who lost. It showed a couple of other things. The board then directly intervened with a letter to the public, ill-timed, ill-thought-out, and deferential to one set of candidates. So that meeting was not only one black guy, it was 3 black guys. Some people are more special than others. Now, the routes, if you have a disabled child, sexually disabled, mentally disabled, whatever, and you got a beef with the school district, typically slobs like me, we go to the teacher, then we go to the principal, then we go to the school management, and then we go to one of our board members. But never are we entitled to a special meeting where the board goes to you. That was the height of indiscretion. And you lowered yourself by saying, we as a quasi-legal judicial body are gonna go out to a body in the middle of an election and kowtow to them. That was a freaking disgrace. Now I want to jump back to intolerance and growth. I find it highly ironic that the head of the social media policy committee himself has denigrated Christians, hunters, and people that dare to question the stupidity, excuse me, I'm not naming anybody.
Time, I'm not talking about you, I'm talking about the commentary in the back of the room. I'm sorry, Mr. Ryder.
Please reserve my time.
It's difficult to hear you speak.
Please reserve my time.
Yes.
Yeah, thanks, thank you.
Thank you. Come on. I gotta find out where in my mind. I find it ironic that the person that is going to develop or was developing the social media policy committee attacks Christians, hunters, and those that dare to question the stupidity of medical authorities and governmental authorities dealing with COVID policy in the United States. And then, because I want to get onto the flag policy, participated in a flag commentary that denigrated the police department of Croton and the fire department of Croton, and led to commentary by a member of the village board that denigrated those authorities over the question of a flag. So here you go, you wish you did venerate this flag the other day. You wish you were there, the entire group of you. And here's the flag history. The flag that should be flagged on that flagpole should be an American flag. It did not fly on that flagpole until 2 years ago. For 2 years, the only flag was the gay flag. That's the primary flagpole on the municipal building. It's higher than any other flagpole. So that flag violated the United States flag law by being higher than the American flag. So last year, they figured, okay, we'll put the American flag up and the gay flag underneath it. But really, it should be the Puerto Rican flag, which is the American flag. What happened is the gay lobby pushed the Puerto Ricans out of the way. This is Puerto Rican American month. The San Juan's holiday, finished, and the Puerto Rican parade pushed that out of the way and replaced the Puerto Rican flag and American flag with the international flag of the sexual movement. Thank you.
If there's no one else, we'll move on board with the voice. Start with advocacy.
Advocacy is going to set up one more meeting before the summer, and we'll keep the meeting for the board informed about that date. I haven't said it yet.
Was it West Pat that was going to speak about us? It's like
So I actually, yeah, I was just trying to pop in, it wasn't up, but so earlier today, although West Point may have these things, but earlier today, we should have received an email from Danielle Grasso.
Yeah.
From NISBA, talking about the final days of the state legislative session. It includes an action tool below that will take you to voter voice on some of the priority bills that are currently in the legislature. I would encourage each of you to go to that section on, and you can share it with, community members, with anyone who can use that voter voice to then, I'm gonna turn it off again, to then, submit letters to our representatives. Please check it out.
Thanks, sir.
Audit.
Well, Omar would be the audit, and I guess. Nishi, I believe you said that we'll send that note about an audit committee meeting. I just don't remember when.
Yes.
In July. Yes. So,
We've not met again since the last one.
yeah, you always don't meet since the last.
No, but our last audit meeting was prior to the previous board business meeting.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct, so in July, the audit committee will certainly have different membership because Josh will not be on it. So I guess whoever will be on it, and the purpose in August, I think, just to be clear, that's,
7th, yeah.
and that's gonna be to go over
The
external audit.
not to go over them, talk about the external audit, yes, we have our prelims tomorrow, but we'll discuss the entire audit process with our external auditors on this day.
We have next board development, I don't know that we're necessarily gonna be meeting again before the end of the year, so I'll just alert you to the fact that you'll be receiving shortly, a poll to indicate, and share your committee interest, that we can have that discussion, in due time, so please keep an eye out for that.
And
Oh, sorry, and then the board that's, sorry.
The self thing, the self eval that's 2020.
That was the second thing, she was just about to remind me, so the board self-evaluation is due on the 20th, and you'll get a reminder next week. Please recall that it is now in an easy, to use online form, so hopefully, folks can get it filled out, thank you.
Thank you again for
Yeah.
putting that together for
Yeah,
us,
that's great.
because it is much.
No,
much
we're
easier.
never gonna have to do it again, ever.
That brings us next to communications. We have not met, so I will be reaching out to our communications committee to schedule a meeting prior to the end of the year if we can, if not very early days of July, so we can close out the year and get ready for it.
sure. I don't think you need to hear from the public.
The only thing I'll say that the policy for the ad hoc committee is that if there's enough feedback that we receive on the social media policy we discussed today, that it might be beneficial for us to,
I don't like where this is going.
no, you know, before, June 30th at 11:59 PM.
I'm in town until then.
We may do that, otherwise the policy committee will, pick things up in the new school year.
Yeah.
You know, we go through a tremendous number of policies this year, so thank you for that.
I think it might be a record.
I think that Neil will be able to tell us because.
Sorry.
I'm expecting it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do want to take this opportunity to say, as we're doing this policy committee, commentary, that, Neil, I want to thank you for all of your, hours of work and in the catalog you have regarding all of these ongoing policies, that this committee could not, I fear the day that committee could not have you at its helm. And just the sheer amount of time and dedication you put into evaluating those policies, the thoughtful approach you have to feedback, and when discussing them, and all of the different players that you pull into the room, it's one of the, it's really collaborative work. I just want to acknowledge that.
Thank you. That's, one of the things about policy committee that I found in all the years that I've been involved on boards, involved on the committee, is that it really gives you the opportunity to understand all of the facets of what it takes to run and be responsible for a very complex organization. And to understand the role of the board as compared to or differentiated from the role of the administrators who implement the policies and administer the policies. And that's all the kind of discussion that you can't do unless you bring everybody in the room.
Yeah,
And so, you know, I've had a lot of enjoyment, and I hope I've, you know, provided a lot to the district over the years, and hope to do so going forward.
my one question to you is, will the ad hoc committee remain, or will the policy committee then absorb the ad hoc committee work, or do you just plan on staying? When the policies are passed, then it'll.
Yeah, well, the ad hoc committee is a committee appointed by the president,
Yeah,
which the president did at our July renewal meeting.
right, so we'll have to reappoint as July,
Or just
roll it back.
absorb it back into policy,
Yeah,
because, you know, there's one of the members from the, would be on board, and it's really up to, you know, you as president to decide, okay, am I gonna appoint somebody else to finish that work, or, you know, should be then feel me and a new person, or have the policy committee take it over again.
right. Something to think about.
Okay.
Holding up board. I'll start. I just want to thank all of you for participating in Steve's review, in getting all your comments into super eval. It's unfortunate that we're now talking about it, everybody's off the room, but the ongoing process of Steve is preparing all of your information of checking on the platform, of adding public feedback. That was compiled. And the end result of that will be published to the district website, as it is every year. And I guess what we should do is make some kind of announcement when we do it, maybe. And not that we're in the habit of making announcements, but about things like that, I guess.
But on June 30th of every year, the superintendent's evaluation is posted to the website
Correct.
and publicly available to all of the community.
Correct. That's all I have to point at the board. Other than I look forward to the next 2 weeks. And all the graduates and all the celebratory things that we have done.
So. Justin? No, but on polling, because one thing to mention, I circulated to the board and to administration today. There's a link to a YouTube video on the visit by the leadership of the New York State United Teachers to Putnam North Westchester BOCES, which happened a couple of weeks ago. As everybody knows, I am also a member of the Putnam North Westchester BOCES board. That video, which is probably about 5 minutes long, you know.
I didn't know.
Oh, wow. Is describes some of the programs and activities, the programs for in career technical education and in special education that PNW BOCES provides to component districts and to other districts who take advantage of their services. Does not talk about other services that are utilized, including professional development services and other counseling, school safety through their programs, but I commend those who haven't looked at it yet, and I commend the members of the public to take a look at that, because we could not do what we do as the Croton Farming District without having a partner in BOCES, and now wear my hat, we couldn't do it without program, and the component districts, but seriously, to look at that, and one of the things that I suggested to one of my colleagues who noted this is, I would be, or no, had seen the video, I said, if the board would be interested, or members of the board would be interested in visiting BOCES during the day and having a walkthrough, a learning walk in their programs on both the CTE side and on the special ed side, I think it really would enlighten those who go to see exactly what goes on. And, if we can, I'm sure they'd be willing to arrange that if we wanted to.
I would love that. And the other thing that I would love is to be at the graduation. I saw photographs online of the girls' graduation today, and some of our students were there, and I would love to at least have someone from the board there to celebrate that achievement. I know they're all gonna walk across our stage at Crowell. I can do that, I don't cry. I know they're all gonna walk across the stage at Crowell Point. But to celebrate every one of these moments with them, or to acknowledge it in some way, I think was just, it would close the loop in terms of appreciating their achievements.
I had intended to go to that graduation yesterday, unfortunately, other commitments.
Yeah, no, I
had me unable to do. But I'm gonna tell you that one of the most moving graduation ceremonies I have not been to before, but I will be attending next Wednesday, is BOCES, BMW BOCES runs the educational program at the Sunshine Rehabilitation Home in Ossining, which is, and the students, residents there are severely disabled, hospitalized students whose services, who are, from what I've seen them and when I've seen the videos, are, truly inspirational to go to. And then Steve talked about, I saw this thing and I cried about that with the unified. That's probably what's gonna happen next Wednesday when I go there. It is my hope to go to other graduation programs. At BOCES, unfortunately, we had a commitment on June 25th, and there's graduation that night. Can't make that, but that is something that, I will hope to do to support our students and all of the students in our, component districts.
Maybe we can add it to our end of year calendar. Yeah.
Sure, I mean, you can just, find out from the district clerk what's continues.
No, everything, yeah.
Right, they find out from the district clerk of being at the BOCES when those graduations are, and I'm sure, they'd love to have any of us who could come.
Yeah.
I just wanted to add very briefly that June is Pride Month, and I don't know who's still tuned in to this meeting, but I know obviously they're recorded and people watch them. I just want to say that I personally feel very proud when I see the pride flag at our municipal building. I feel obviously we, as the school board, do not have control or any say in whether that happens, but I personally feel extremely proud that that's there. I also, as a school board member, feel extremely proud that we have pride clubs and representation, real representation in our school system. And I just want folks to know that are tuned in now, that may be LGBTQ students or parents of LGBTQ students, that our school district stands with them, and that they are part of our community, just like everyone else. Thanks.
I'm sure, so I both actually had the opportunity to attend this week a presentation sponsored by the CETA on, I just want to make sure that I don't get the name of it wrong, so I might have to down correctly. Navigate it, basically this is navigating the digital age, so an event sort of designed to help parents understand some of the challenges of technology use and exposure at the elementary and older level. I thought it was a really interesting discussion. There was such a high level of engagement. There were so many community members who came out. We heard earlier this evening that one of our members of the public gave that presentation and gave us a little bit of insight as to how it came about and what it was sort of about. But I think it raised for me, and I think should raise for all of us across the board, really important questions of sort of, as a social media policy that was just developed also does. The fact that technology is changing at such a rapid pace, we are not necessarily able to keep up with developments in terms of science, in terms of our understanding with policy, for example, or with practices sometimes even in our school buildings, because things are changing so quickly. So I just want to sort of issue a call for all of us as a board in the district to really to continue to engage in these topics and really think about ways that we can further this conversation that in a way that is explicitly responsive to the concerns that I think we're hearing from parents of our younger students and parents of students actually all the way up the line, just because I think this is a reality and a fact of everyone's existence in terms of our attention spans and our ability to process, retain information, et cetera. We could all, give long speeches about it. We all have different things that we do to control and manage our own access to devices and the ways that our attention has been sort of like monetized by some of these systems. So I hope it's something that we can sort of turn a little bit more of an effort to, because we definitely have some people who are, I think, thought leaders on this front, certainly with our director of technology and with teachers and other folks who are really invested in helping us figure out how to navigate this in the years ahead. So it was a really great presentation. Yeah, no, she was
there,
yeah.
as were Carrie and Craig,
Yeah.
so that was really amazing. But I don't know if you agree or not, but I felt like I learned as much from the questions in the community.
Exactly.
Concern in the conversation that I did as from Ms. Anderson.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it was, I do want to say, it's like, yes, it was great that Ellen was there also just to be able to sort of hear, and I think she was extremely responsive to people who had questions and was able to answer questions, which felt really appropriate in terms of an event that was taking place at the district, that we also had that sort of representation. The presenter it was very clear that her focus was on the parent experience and not on the curricular classroom experience, which was appropriate in my opinion. But I think, again, the fact that this is just, it's been bubbling out for a while, and now it's really back at the forefront, I think it merits further consideration. So I'm glad that we were able to be there,
Yeah.
and I hope that those conversations will continue.
One last time.
I cry.
I want to talk for a moment about discomfort. Running for the school board back in 2013 was the most uncomfortable thing I have ever done. That's the first time I ever ran for public office. And when I did that, I was exhorted to do so by somebody I was actually trying to convince them to run for the school board. And they said, no, dummy, you should run for the school board. And so I did. Thank you, Bob Nolan. And I think that it's our job as school board members, just as it's our job, as it is the job of educators, I think, to a certain degree, to get uncomfortable. Doing a good job at this requires discomfort. It requires stretching. It requires pushing boundaries. It requires, unfortunately, sometimes it requires saying no to things that you might not necessarily feel that it's comfortable to say no to, or saying yes to things that it's not necessarily comfortable to say yes to, but that is in the best interest of all the kids, or is in the best interest of the community, or both. And we all come at this, every single one of us have our own unique come from, our own unique grounding point that we start from. And that means that we come at this table, we come to these rooms with differing points of view. Even if we may be aligned on a lot of things, there's always going to be some things where we're not. And that's okay. And that's where the special sauce is in that discourse and that clash of ideas, and out pops a great idea. And yes, it's unfortunate that sometimes it's hard to see that, but that sometimes happens just around this table and there'll be a look. And because we've learned to work with each other over time, and I know that that's something that even though I'm stepping off the board, I'm gonna take with me for always. And I know that you'll develop it with the next person on the board in some way. And boards are always evolving and, I know, as I said before, I've been through 3 superintendents and each relationship was completely different. But all of them are rewarding. So I wish you all well. I thank you for everything that I experienced in it. And keep on being uncomfortable in a good way. Thanks, Josh.
Unfortunately, I'm so sorry to have to follow up on that. I was like trying to even before, but you beat me to it because that's a wonderful way to end. But I really just did want to pop in real quickly and note that I was at the IDEA committee meeting. We did the recaps of the Pride flag raising and of the Summerfest booth that we ran, debriefed on those. But I wanted to call everybody's attention to the Juneteenth events that the IDEA committee is sponsoring that will be held from 2 to 4 p.m. at the Solo Park. So there are going to be lots of great events. There will be music and storytelling and reading for children. So I encourage everyone and their families to attend if you're able to make it there. So it should be a great event, and that's all I wanted to pop in.
Sorry, this.
Yeah, that's okay.
This
I was like, I'm so sorry. I was like, so anticlimactic. Like,
Oh, no.
Greg will fix it in the edit.
Moving into item. Neil, do you have anything? 8.4, items needed for the next Board of Education meeting. Our next Board of Education meeting will be on July 10th. It will be our organizational meeting. See what I did there? Which is weird because we always call it the real meeting. Now we just gotta call it the org meeting. Yeah. What's that?
I'm gonna have a meeting the same day. It's gonna be the disorganization.
Yeah.
So
Flying around the whole day.
I guess, other than what we normally go through, one thing now might be good to have from administration, just for the community is, okay, we're getting into the summer. We're starting what I hope is the final push to have all of our facilities done. I think it might be nice if we could.
To knock on something.
Thank you. I'll do that too.
Well, it's just looking good.
Well, bringing kind of an update of where we are and whether in fact there, what kind of issues, if any, there may be to having things done by, mid to late August, so. Yeah, that would be good for us.
We can certainly put that together.
We did that 2 meetings ago, I think.
Well, but I mean, now you're really in a home stretch, as, Spencer's looking really good, the turf is there. Laid out and.
Oh,
so we'll just
live
fire these
out
items
of the
of
view.
That's good. Greg, can you arrange that? Okay.
Okay. 8.5. Executive session. So we are going to enter executive session. We will leave there and the meeting will end. So recommended action. Be it resolved, the Board of Education hereby enters into executive session to discuss the employment of a particular person or persons.
Second.
On the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Good evening, everyone.